everybody. Welcome to another episode of Allure of the Poor. It has been a little while since I've done an episode of this, but I am so excited because, well, honestly, I'm still in California. I would really be much more excited if I was doing this in person. But we have Jules Taylor here from New Zealand, Jules Taylor Wines in New Zealand. And it's tomorrow in New Zealand. So I always
Always
think
ahead of
that's
the game.
cool. I always think that's cool, and you get that joke of, so do you have the winning lottery tickets, But welcome,
Brilliant.
welcome, welcome. So
Thank you.
so
Lovely to
happy to
be here.
Oh, thank you. It's so happy. I am so happy to meet you. When they asked if I would do this, I think the email didn't even officially get all the way, downloaded before I was like, yes, absolutely. This is so cool. So I am thrilled
Thank
to
you.
have you here. So first of all, my very first question, Jules, is always, always, always the origin story. How did you get into the wine industry?
Well, it's kind of, we all get here by crazy routes, right? I'd grown up in Marlborough. I left here because all my friends were going, went to university because all my friends were going, and I studied zoology and planted microbial
Oh my
science.
God,
Snack.
I zoology.
I know. Anyway, so at the end of that, it was like, what am I going to do? I didn't really have the brains or the inclination or the money to stay on and do a master's or anything like that. And I liked wine. And so it seemed like a natural progression for me to go and learn how to make it so I could save myself some money. So off I went. I changed university and did a 1-year postgraduate course in winemaking and viticulture. And yeah, that was back in 1993. And then I moved back to Marlborough. Purely because, I had no money. I'd been studying for 4 years. My parents still lived here. I wanted to bring my washing home for my mum to do separately. But also the wine industry back then was starting to get some traction. And so I thought I'd come home and beg for a job, basically. And at the time, I thought I'd end up working in the viticulture side of the industry. I still think, it is the backbone of what we do, right? Growing the fruit. And I still love growing my own vegetables and fruits and things like that. But I did a vintage, and I don't know, you just get completely sucked in by, the craziness of it all. It was so stressful, probably the most stressful thing ever. I lost a whole lot of weight just because I was so frigging anxious.
Wow.
Anyway, that aside, did a vintage, and yeah, here I am quite a lot of time later, still doing what, I love this industry. I love it that you can turn grapes into wine. That is still, it blows my mind every year that you can turn, the humble little grape into something that gives people joy.
Yes, and a lot of joy it does give.
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah. So I worked in Marlborough and then started traveling, working in Italy, and I'd come home via Australia because you can kind of fit in a vintage in the Hunter Valley before Marlborough's fruit is ripe. And so for a lot of years, I felt like I was sort of this itinerant worker, which was so much fun. I met so many great people and worked with interesting varieties and got to eat food and buy shoes all over the place. And, but eventually, good things come to an end. And I settled in Marlborough with my then boyfriend. He's my husband now, so yeah. And we've been here ever since. Still coming and going when we can, but obviously, we had children, and so that kind of put a kibosh on the traveling to other countries and working vintage. But yeah, here we are still in Marlborough, enjoying a fabulous lifestyle. We live in a small town that still doesn't have traffic signals, although our traffic is getting a little bit interesting. And we live in this great playground of really cool things. And we're lucky, I feel very lucky.
How old are your kids?
They're 2 boys, and the younger one's just turned 16 and the older one is not far off 18. So interesting times in our house.
I'm sure. Are they into the wine? Is that the direction they're going to go?
I mean, during the summertime when they're off school, we, get them to do all those joyful things in the vineyard, like bud rubbing and lifting wires. And the younger one recently learned to drive the tractor, which I think he found way more interesting than, walking up and down rows. But at this stage, I'm hoping that I don't know, I'd never sort of say, hey, this is what you need to be doing. I think they need to find their own way in the world. But who knows? Who knows where that will go?
I don't, what is the driving age there?
It's 16, you can get a learner license. So the day after my son's 16th birthday, which was a Sunday, on the Monday he was in sitting his test. So he's got his, we call them loser plates. He's got his L plates now, which is, slightly stressful for us and other drivers. But yeah, we've all got to learn. I mean, I got my driver's license basically the day I turned 15. It has changed, and now it's more of a progressive thing, which I think is
kind of
probably a good thing.
Yeah, they do that here too.
Yeah.
Actually, well, I'm originally from New Jersey. I don't know if they do that in California, but in New Jersey, you get your learner's permit. And then when you get your license is facing the wrong direction. So everybody knows that you've only had your license for 1 year. And then you have to put these red stickers on your license plate. So everybody around you knows that you've only been driving for 1 year. But I was going to say, your son, everybody talks about when they get their license, they want to go drive the car or whatever. Your son, he's like, can I have the keys to the tractor?
Yeah. It was kind of funny. I mean, he'd driven a tractor more, than a car, which is, it happens down here.
That's awesome. That is wonderful. So I checked, I always joke around that I have to do some, spy work and, check the people out before I go in. But one of the things, your website says that your winery started with big dreams, hard work, and a healthy dose of not taking ourselves too seriously. And I could already tell that last part is you in your soul to the truth that you just have a good time in this, don't you?
Well, I mean, you work for a lot of time during a week, right? So you've got to be doing something that you enjoy. Otherwise, I don't see the point. I mean, while we say, we don't take ourselves too seriously, we do have a little bit of seriousness, but for the most part, if you can't enjoy what you do, I'm not interested. The day that this becomes a chore, I'm going to hang up my winemaking boots,
Right. Yeah. So is there a big difference? So you said that your first vintage, you were so stressed, you lost weight and whatever. Now it's still, cause I don't know, we make wine. My husband and I own a winery also in Paso Robles. So it is stressful. Every vintage is something stressful,
it's stressful. There's always something. Right. Whether it be a drought or whether it be a lack of something, at the moment, we're struggling with workers. It's just, I think that's part of the most exciting thing about the industry is that every year is different. We're not making the same thing in the same way every single year with the same recipe, so Mother Nature obviously has a huge influence in what we do. And so every year is different. And I think that's probably what keeps me going. It's like, what is this vintage going to be like? Right. How is spring going to be? Are we going to have any frosts? What's going to happen? So for me, that's, part of the joy of making wine. Every year is interesting, exciting, scary. We've had some crackers recently. The last 2020 was a nightmare with COVID. And 2021, we went from being probably one of the most stressful to the cruisiest, most delightful in terms of beautiful fruit. So it's kind of a roller coaster, this winemaking gig. You know what that's like, right? It's up and down all over the show. And just when you think you're cruising, you meet a little road bump.
All right.
Put there just to keep us entertained.
Yes. But I agree with that. You're making the same end product. It's wine. You're taking grapes and you're ending with wine, but that journey from grape to bottle
To
is
yeah,
never ever the same. There's something
yeah,
that changes, and I agree. That's what makes us get up in the morning and go. It's like,
sure.
granted, there's some things that are a little bit more exciting and some things that are a lot more stressful.
Oh yeah, and the mundane as well.
Yeah.
All the compliance stuff. But yeah, I think that trying to maintain some kind of consistency of style, yeah, it can be difficult sometimes.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely. And as you said, your mundane things. So many people are like, oh, it would be so
Oh, so
wonderful to own a
glamorous.
winery. It would be so like, oh yeah, come on. Let's see. You want to see the whole picture?
Yeah. Oh
But
yeah.
it's still something that is in your passion, that is in your heart, that
Yeah.
that is just the best thing ever, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, the other thing is, I'm so far in this, I've got a lot of stuff invested in this. I don't know what else I'd do. That's my other issue, what would I do if I didn't make wine? I
Hmm.
don't know, make cheese.
I don't know, maybe you
Unsure.
should try to do them both,
Yeah.
'cause I'm sure you have plenty of time on your hands, I'm
Yeah.
sure.
Oh yeah. Lots of time.
Lots of time, lots of time. Because I hear cheese making is super easy too.
Oh golly.
Uh, so you had mentioned a little bit about your start in the career. So you started in the wine industry as a group senior winemaker, for a large winery, right? And then for a prestigious winery. What made you? We're not going to do name dropping unless you want to. But at some point, you were like, I'm done with this large industry. I'm done with this, working for a large company. I want to make my own wine. What was that turning point that
Mm,
made you decide Jules Taylor is getting the label?
here we go. I mean, it wasn't really my idea. It was while I was working for these lovely people. They said, you only know how to make wine. You have absolutely no idea about the rest of the industry. I mean, this whole gig, the winemaking part is actually the easy bit. Sourcing fruit, deciding when to pick it, getting packaging design or choosing what to call it. All these things are, I think, probably much more difficult than the actual wine making. And then taking it to someone and saying, hey, Laurie, nice to meet you. Would you like to try my wine? Oh, you like it? Could you buy it? Could you put it on your list or on your shelf? All that, for me, that stuff is, that's difficult. There's so many good wines out there. So many people have different ideas about, what they want. That's hard to get someone to pick your wine, to put on the shelf, and then to get the consumer to pick that off the shelf in this. I mean, we live in this amazing world where there is so much choice, right? That's the hard bit. So while I was working at Marlborough Valley Cellars, which, had those lovely people, they said, why don't we fund you into doing your own thing? So they fully funded the venture for the first 5 vintages. We had a very rudimentary Excel spreadsheet that at the end of the year, we pushed the sum button. And if that number was in the black, we would just divvy the cash. And it wasn't until 2006 that my husband and I actually purchased all the stock and decided to put our big boy and girl pants on and go it alone. So we had a lot of amazing support from a lot of people. And that's another great thing about this industry. It's not rocket science. There aren't many secrets. And so everyone is really open with their knowledge, and, people pay it forward, which is, I think, awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And That's one of the things that we find also. So I
Yeah.
think that's a universal thing in the wine world. I
Yeah.
don't think it's a
Yeah.
specific region or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, you can go to somebody else and say, listen, I'm just stuck. I don't exactly know
Yeah.
what to do with
Yeah.
this. And they're not going, ha 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 ha, they
Yeah.
legit, yeah, right.
Yeah.
They legit try to help you and do that. And I hear so many winemakers who have their own labels started that same way, where they were
Yeah.
working at another winery, a larger facility, and
Yeah.
that facility was like, hey, you know what, we've got 2 extra tons of whatever,
Whatever. Yeah. Yeah.
do you want to start your own label? And
Yeah.
that's how so many people have started, and
Yeah.
that's a beautiful thing about the
It's so
industry.
great. Absolutely. And I mean, I stayed working in, my real job. I didn't start working full time in Jules Taylor until October 2008. So I had a real job for a long time, and this was just kind of my little moonlighting thing bubbling along. And, eventually you get to a point where you've got to take a risk, you've got to say, okay, believe in yourself, get on with this, you'll never know if you don't try. So I handed in my resignation and my keys to my company car, and off we went. And I mean, God, it took a long time before this thing actually could feed our family properly, right? Yeah. Anyway, it's all good fun. We're never going to be gazillionaires, but we're having a good time trying.
There you go, right? It's good time
Yeah.
trying. That's all that really
Yeah.
matters, right?
Yeah.
And so now you said it was 2008 when you
Mm-hmm.
actually said goodbye to the day job, but your first
Yeah.
label was in 2001,
The one, yeah. But I
right?
mean, it was tiny. I made in total 400 cases.
Oh, okay.
150 of Pinot Gris. I think it was 150 of Pinot Gris and 250 of Riesling.
Oh, okay.
That was, yeah, they were the two varieties. We didn't have a Sauvignon Blanc. I mean, for goodness sake, we didn't have a Sauvignon Blanc until 2004. Yeah, but it's been a slow build. Yeah.
What's your case production now?
We're at about 50,000.
Okay.
So still not massive, but it's enough to keep us going.
Okay. And now, do you have? We're in AP, so there's multiple wineries in our building. We don't own the equipment.
Yep.
Are
Same.
you're in an AP also?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the facility that we use, I'm not sure how many clients they have, but quite a few. And there's just no way that we'd be able to fund all that infrastructure, for presses and things like that you only use once a year. I mean, it even if I win the lottery,
Yeah.
it would be a stretch.
Right. I don't really ever see any other way that we would do it either. Like, that just makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why should I dish out all of this money, like you said, for equipment that you're going to use once,
Yeah.
one little, season,
Yeah.
and then it's going to
Yeah.
sit there and, do nothing for the rest
Yeah.
of it. I rather, work in this system, where
Yeah.
it is. Although the compliance, I don't know how it is there, but the compliance here is ridiculous. Like, you literally sign a piece of paper that you take over that piece of equipment, and then you sign that piece of paper that it went back. It's so much paperwork.
Right. It's slightly, it's slightly different here in that the facility that we work from is fully run by them. So all we do is, say, hey, on this day, I'd like to bring in 20 tons of Pinot Gris, and there's a booking system, you book it in, you turn up with the fruit, and they do everything. So everything is documented and written down and all traceable and all that kind of stuff. So I don't have to, it's a bit of a shame, but I don't have to do any of that physical work anymore, which was, occasionally I'll fill some barrels, but they do that for us.
Yeah, that is how ours is too. Just for the documentation of when we're processing, they actually sign the paper, kind of electronically sign that equipment to Dracaena Wines. and then it
Oh, we
gets
don't.
signed back to them because we're the ones processing it, but I'm not physically processing it. It's the same thing. They
Yeah.
have full-time
Oh, that's
workers.
crazy.
I know it's just all paperwork, but it's at least it's electronic now, but it's all
Yeah, yeah,
it's
for
all
sure.
paperwork.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it's always exciting to see those grapes go into the process, however the process is.
Oh, yeah.
Right. Now, you said that you actually thought that you would start off really be in the viticulture side,
Mm-hmm.
but
Mm-hmm.
you much prefer in the winery now?
It's just the way it kind of panned out. I mean, I still, have huge interest in the grape growing, and especially during harvest. That's our one chance to decide, where that flavor window is. I mean, we can manipulate acid and things like that, but you can't change flavor. So I spend a lot of time walking up and down those rows, filling my poor belly with berries, deciding when that is. And I love that time of year. It's super exciting. Super exciting.
It is. It is. I agree with you. Now, so tell us about Marlborough. Like where
Oh,
exactly it is. I mean, how big is it? What's your climate like? Just give
yeah.
us a
A little
Marlborough.
snapshot.
Yes.
Okay, so Marlborough is on the northeastern tip of the South Island of New Zealand. We're definitely cool climate. This morning we would have had in Fahrenheit, it would have been below 32. So it's nice and crisp and frosty in the winter, but we have these beautiful clear days and it might get to, oh God, maybe 60, 50, 55, 60. So we have nice clear days, but not too hot. The summertime is warm, but never like California. I've been to Paso and I've got friends there and I've stayed there and nearly died, I think. We just don't get that kind of heat. And in the evenings, once the sun goes down, there are probably only, I don't know, between 5 and 10 evenings that you would sit outside without putting a jacket on.
Oh, okay.
So we get this beautiful diurnal difference in temperature. The days are nice and bright, a lot of UV. You get sunburn very quickly here, but it's not super hot. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, it's kind of weird. Anyway, so nice bright sunlight and it's quite dry. Dry. Yeah, not like you guys dry, but pretty dry. So we probably only get around 600 odd of rain a year, millimeters.
Okay.
So it's, having said that, I think we probably got a third of that 2 weekends ago and there was dreadful flooding. So, again, Mother Nature flexing her muscles.
Absolutely.
What else about Marlborough? So it's a valley. And on the main valley floor, lots of different varieties grown. I think the southern valleys, which are north facing and slightly heavier in clay, more sort of Pinot Noir and that kind of variety grown over there. Our prevailing wind is the nor'west, which comes across from Australia, so warm wind that picks up moisture coming across the Tasman Sea, and then the hills to the north of Marlborough kind of protect us from that, so the rain tends to fall there. So often we can be nice and sunny and clear, and there'll be rain out there. And similarly, we get the southerly wind from Antarctica, comes up bitterly cold, sort of hits Cape Campbell, which is a little cape to the east of us, and then deflects that over into the North Island. So we're quite protected from, wind and rain. What else? Marlborough. Yeah, it's quite diverse. People say, oh my God, all Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc's the same. It's just utter rubbish, quite different depending on where you are in the valley, whether you're closer to the sea, further up the valley, closer to the hills, or over in the Awatiri Valley, which is, if it was a region of its own, it would be the second largest, next to Marlborough. Okay. Wow. Yeah, a lot of fruit grown over in the Awatiri, which is, the flavour profiles are completely different from the Waido.
So that was going to be my next question, is there's 3 sub-regions, right, within Marlborough. right?
Yeah, I would say even more than that. I mean, within the Awatiri, it it is different down the valley and on the either side of the river. And in this main valley, gosh, I would say there's more than 3 subregions even within this valley. So yeah, lots of diversity in terms of soil type and just heat accumulation, depending on where you are.
Do you, so now you source all of your fruit and correct, do you have any estate whatsoever?
Yeah, we own one vineyard and we
Okay.
lease another, but the majority of our fruit comes from contract growers, some of whom we've worked with for a long time, some of whom are tiny. We have a Gruner grower that has 0.8 of a hectare. Some of our other growers have much larger holdings and they provide fruit to multiple wine companies. But yeah, we couldn't do this if it weren't for them.
And so that was,
Again, the lottery.
yes,
Yeah.
several lotteries.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I always ask when people source their fruit is, how do you come about? So you said that you've been working with these people for a long
Mhm.
time. How
Mhm.
did you originally find them and decide, yes, this is the contract that I want to, the vineyard owner or vineyard
Right.
manager that I want to work with? What are you looking for that this is going to be a relationship? Because I try to explain to people, it's not only the fruit, you need to have the relationship with the person. So
Yeah.
what are you looking for?
Well, I think, as you allude to, I think the number one thing is we want to work with nice people, we want to work with people who are, smaller family businesses that are taking care of their land for future generations. And in the beginning, it was super difficult because we were this sort of no one that was saying, hey, we'd like to buy your fruit. And rightly so. They didn't trust our checkbook. It was like, why would they supply us the fruit? So in the beginning, it was quite hard, and we lost out on parcels of fruit to other more well-established brands. And I mean, I get that. But in my former life, what I did see was a lot of different vineyards from around Marlborough, and I sort of formulated a picture in my mind about where we wanted to be sourcing the different varieties from. So that was hugely beneficial when it came to deciding where we were going to be sourcing fruit from.
And the website says that you like to focus in on single blocks. Are the majority of your wines 100%, whatever the variety is, or do you have blends in there?
The wines are 100% the variety. In New Zealand, we have an 85% rule, but our wines are 100%. We have a range of single vineyard wines under the OTQ, the On the Quiet banner, but the Jules Taylor, that classic white label range that you see more often in the United States, they tend to be blends. Oh yeah, there we go.
Tough with the light.
Yeah.
There it is.
Yeah. So that wine that you've got, that actually is a single vineyard wine, that one, just by chance that year. Yeah.
And when you're looking for the fruit, actually, I told you, I scouted you big time. It says that you're a mother to 2, but the godmother to several 100,000 grapes.
Yeah.
I tell you, I was having I was laughing. My husband, I was laughing while I was looking at these things to come up with these questions, and I'm laughing. My husband, so what is so funny? I'm like, she's the godmother to grapes. This is the best thing ever. I absolutely love this. So,
Oh, yeah, they're my babies, right? Yeah.
as the
They're the
godmother,
babies that don't talk back.
There
they
you
don't
go.
talk back, and they don't steal all the food from the fridge.
What are you looking for in your godchildren? Like while you're walking through, so let's start with we'll start with the Chardonnay because we're going to taste the Pinot Gris. So let's talk about the Chardonnay itself. So as you're walking through the vineyard and we're getting close to harvest, what are you as you're picking your godchildren to taste them, what's going through your mind? Walk us through.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're trying to look for, what is this going to look like, post all the fermentation and yada yada. Um, I I think because of the climate here, the wines tend to have a nice, what I call bright, juicy acidity. I mean, they're not acidic, but I think, the acid backbone it's the thing that all these other flavors hang off. So once you get past that kind of really fierce acid, I mean, you don't want to be going, terrible puckering acidity. I'm also looking, to get it more in that kind of stone fruity kind of end of the flavor profile. I mean, because of the cool climate here, the Chardonnay tends to be sort of more minerally stone fruity than big, ripe, tropical, fruit
Right.
bombs that you get from more, warmer climates. So yeah, I'm looking for bright, juicy acidity, but not acidic. And getting through that, I don't want to taste too much of that kind of appley component, which I think, can be one of the precursors before we get to, ripe, ready to pick Chardonnay. And they have this, you can even look at a bunch and go, oh yeah, you look ready. They go from sort of more that sort of greeny color to slightly more golden, depending on the exposure. I mean, obviously the berries at the back are going to be green, but, you get that beautiful golden glow.
Right. And so one of the things we produce a Chenin Blanc, and one of the things that I think
Yum.
adds to the dimensions of Chenin Blanc is that it unripens, it ripens unevenly. My
Yep.
mouth couldn't talk correctly.
Yep.
How about Chardonnay?
Yeah.
How about Chardonnay? Do those bunches pretty much ripen at the same time? Are they uneven? Are you looking for even bunches or uneven bunches?
I think they can be quite even within the vine, but within a bunch, I mean, you're going to get different flavor profiles just purely because of, UV light exposure. I mean, I think that, and varieties like Sauvignon Blanc, I mean, we're aiming for that because I want, a fruit salad of flavors. You don't want it all to taste the same, right? Pinot Noir, I'm happier if that's more similar. Do you know what I mean? But Chardonnay, I do think, you got to taste those ones at the back because, if they're pretty full on, that can kind of overpower the resulting wine. So once they're good to go, book in the pickers.
You're ready to go.
You're ready to go.
Awesome.
Take those guys to town.
Yes. All right.
Yeah.
So one of the things is that next week, August 4th, is National or International White Wine Day. So I take these wine days with, like laughter or whatever. And I actually created a wine day. I created a wine day that is actually internationally recognized now. So I take it with a grain of salt. But I have to say, I love it when it lands on a Wine Wednesday or,
perfect.
So do you celebrate are you going to celebrate International White Wine Day on the 4th?
Well, the problem is I probably celebrate it on many days. So it might not be such a different day in my life, but I am a big white wine drinker. I don't know, red wine and Jules, we're not the best of friends. So for me, I might have a glass of, I don't know, Chablis or, I'm a bit of a Sauvignon Blanc queen. I love a glass of Savvy. It's that wine that it's a good pick-me-up. If you've had a crappy day, it's going to jump out of the glass and say, here I am, I've got your back.
There you go.
Yum. Yeah.
And you know what? That's true. It is true. When you have a good Sauvignon Blanc, it does. It's difficult to not smile and feel things are going to get brighter.
Absolutely.
It's like the Annie song of wines. The sun will come out tomorrow.
Oh my God, that is absolutely true. Yeah.
So your white wines are actually vegan, gluten-free, and sustainably certified. So I think everybody knows, I'm glad to hear that it's sustainable and more wineries are doing that. But the gluten and vegan thing is, people get very confused by that and get very, upset with certain things that they don't really understand. Are your wines not filtered, or are you using bentonite or vegetable plaques? How are you doing that?
Yeah, so they're definitely filtered, just because I'm a chicken, and when it's my livelihood, yeah, they're filtered, so then they're bright. Yeah. We also use bentonite to protein stabilize the wine, just so that, if you leave it in the back seat of your car and then cool it down, there's no haze. So that's purely for, so I don't get too many emails from consumers having to explain that. In terms of fining, most of our wines have virtually no finings. I think the way we process the fruit, the cool of the night, we're not doing a huge amount of skin contact, and the varieties we use don't have super phenolic skins, especially if you let them ripen to when they're, physiologically ripe. They don't need fining. We tend to make a press cut and then oxidize the living bejesus out of the pressing, so that all those kind of, harsh characters, you just don't end up in the wine. They just don't end up there. I mean, definitely the Pinot Gris and the Chardonnay and the Sav, they haven't had any findings apart from bentonite.
Okay. Well, I think it's the perfect time to give this a taste. So, because I'm thirsty. So we are going to taste your 2020 Pinot.
It's after midday.
Yes, it is way too late for me, so I'm good to go. So we are tasting the 2020 Jules Taylor Pinot Gris. So if you can tell me as I pour a little bit about this wine, why a Pinot Gris? Because I was actually pretty shocked how much Pinot Gris there is in Marlborough. Like, as we all know, Sauvignon Blanc is, queen.
Yes.
But it actually, there's more Pinot Gris than there is Chardonnay. So tell us about Pinot Gris.
I mean, for me, it's a wine that it satisfies a lot of different palates. So if you're at a table and there are three of you and you're wanting to buy a bottle of wine at the restaurant, and someone likes Sauvignon and someone likes Chardonnay, it's like, just get a bottle of Pinot Gris. It ticks a lot of the boxes. So you're getting, quite a lot of the kind of textural component like Chardonnay. You're getting beautiful bright fruit, like you get not the same flavor profiles, but you get bright fruit like Sauvignon. And everyone's going to be happy. It's just that really easy to drink, goes with lots of different foods. Yeah, it's just super, super, for me, it's the logical choice, right? When you, if you've got options.
These aromatics are like, I'm in a little itty bitty room here. And when I open the door, it's going to be like, when you have fresh flowers in a little room, and
yes,
these aromatics are out of this world. They are.
And I think we've seen quite a change over probably the last 10 years, when some of the newer clones have been brought into New Zealand and planted, the 457s and the 52B. I mean, I think the original clones that were planted here didn't have a huge amount of aromatic components. So as a winemaker, you're always trying to do something different in the winery to try and coax everything out of them. But the newer clones have beautiful spice and they're smaller berries, and so they've got a little bit more bang for your buck in terms of flavor and aroma. So you get hints of the spice along with all those beautiful stone fruity characters. And some of this fruit we have hand harvested and whole cluster pressed into old barrels for wild ferment. I mean, really old barrels, not for any kind of oaky component, but just to have that really, small vessel for the crazy high solids wild ferment. And I think that just adds another, dimension to the wine. I'm a sucker for dry wines. You'll never see Jules Taylor making a sweet Pinot Gris. I think it just lends itself to, lots of different occasions, whether it just be having a glass with a friend in a bar after work or sitting down with a meal. Not into sweet Pinot Gris, but that's just a personal preference. And so that's how you get it. Sorry. Yeah.
Well, we joke that when people ask us, well, why did you choose Cabernet Franc to start with? And our comment was probably too honestly was like, we didn't know if anybody was going to buy it. So we were making something
we were going to drink
it
ourselves.
I
think it's a common thing.
Right. You're not going to make a wine that's not to your palate, right? Yeah. Because you're the one who's making it. So I don't think you can go into this industry and say, I don't like sweet wines. I'm going to make sweet wine and I'm going to be the winemaker of that, because I don't think those two can go hand in hand.
Yeah. Well, it's super hard to take that to someone and sell it to them, right? Because, because of honesty.
Because of honesty, right. Can you tell us a little bit about like history of Pinot Gris? Like, how is Pinot Gris different than Pinot Noir, or what is Pinot Gris?
Well, it's a different color. That's the first thing. But yeah, they're very closely related. In fact, I can't show you photos on my phone. Often you see a bunch of Pinot Gris that has kind of gone a little bit loopy and gone back to its original kind of, history. And you'll see a berry that's half Pinot Gris, half Pinot Blanc, or half Pinot Gris, half Pinot Noir, and it's like, what's going on here? So it's probably, not very stable from a genetic point of view. Apart from that, I really don't know much about it. I'm embarrassed to say.
It is a mutation though, correct? It is not, right? So it's like the X-Men of Pinot Noir. They should be kept at a Xavier school for special grapes. But this is beautiful. It has that stone fruit. I still cannot get over the aromatics, because it's not even close to my nose, and it's
super pretty.
It is.
And I think even though, the sugar is probably just under 4 grams per litre, but because to get this ripe in the vineyard, it gets quite ripe in terms of bricks. And so as a consequence, you end up with, pretty reasonable alcohol. This is probably about 13.7, 13.8. So that combined with that sugar level and low acid, I think people see it as much sweeter, that sort of perceived sweetness that you get from alcohol. So I think it's a super, super easy wine to drink. Do you know what I mean? It doesn't sort of whack you with like, fierce acidity or, really, really dry, palate. Right. But I just love it because it's got those beautiful kind of peach and spice kind of characters, It reminds me of my grandma's old peaches, those old-fashioned peaches that you guys get, at the Templeton market, the Templeton farmers market, all those beautiful, whenever I go there, it just blows my mind. There can be so many different varieties of peach or tomato. It's just so cool.
We have a very small garden, and we have 6 different tomatoes growing in.
Right. There you go. Perfect.
But this is, and I think that's spot on. The peach is beautiful. It's and it has that spice. And the thing about the palate is there is acid there. It's not the salivate your tongue, acid. It's not the I sucked on a lemon citrus, that's no. But this it's acid that actually makes it right down the middle, where I can sit and chill with this on its own, but it can also go with food. It's got enough structure to it that I can sit down and enjoy a meal with it also. And that's not always an easy balance to have.
No, it's a tight line.
Right. But
Yeah.
it is lovely. Do you know what this retails for here?
I imagine it's around $20,
Oh, well, I'm gonna
maybe
go out on
slightly
a
less.
limb here. I'm gonna go out on a limb here and say this is a case buy at that point.
Yeah.
This is a case buy at this price because this is you can just taste the quality in it. There's the dimensions that are in it. It's not just unidimensional. There's so much
Yeah.
going on in there, and
Yeah.
it's just it just coats your tongue. It is a little fuller bodied than I had expected it to be.
Right.
And that's not a bad thing. It's just, in my head, when I was getting ready to taste it, I was expecting it to be a lighter bodied wine. I don't really know why.
I think it's just that in Marlborough, we can get this really ripe. You do see sort of slightly more austere, down the line kind of Pinot Gris, but they probably just picked a wee bit earlier.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you did say this is wild ferment. Do you do all your
Some of
wines at
it's wild
wild?
ferment.
Oh, okay.
Probably it wouldn't even be 10%, but
Okay.
it is quite amazing what 10%, I mean, when you're blending, what 10% can do to, the more sort of standard, cool stainless steel fermented with not as many solids. I definitely think that, yeah, we will continue to, do a portion like this just because it makes it a little more interesting. I mean, as a variety, sometimes, yeah, as I said earlier, it can be a little bit kind of, a little bit boring. But yeah,
Well,
the
this is
wild
not
ferment
boring.
and
This
halo.
is not boring at all. And so when you're processing this, you said you're using neutral oak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you're doing wild ferment for a portion of it. And then
Yep.
so you're using commercial yeast. That commercial yeast, are you dividing that also into neutral oak and stainless? Or
No, that's just 100% in stainless.
okay.
Yeah. And fermented pretty cool, around 10 degrees Celsius.
Okay.
That's probably, what's that, about 50, 50,
52?
50,
Yeah, yeah.
52. Yeah. Yeah, so nice and cool. So once we've pitched the yeast, which is obviously a little, the temperature is a little bit warmer in the juice, and once that starts rolling over and producing gas, and you can see those yeast are super super happy, it's time to click that cooling switch. And as a winemaker here, I think it's probably one of our best tools, to retain that fruit. Fermenting cool, we find is the way forward.
Well, I will say whatever you are doing, it is lovely.
Oh, thank you, Laurie.
It is I the on the palate, the finish is just it's still there. It is a long finish, and I'm horrible at food pairings because I eat so little. My variety of food is pretty much protein bars, Pop Tarts, pasta. But I know I eat horribly. But but like we're gonna have this with cheese later. We're gonna finish this with cheese later, and I can't.
Nice.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm probably gonna have a little bit more, and my husband's gonna have a little bit less when
Well,
he
that's
finally gets
okay.
home.
That's only fair.
Yeah, it absolutely is. It absolutely is. So I'm gonna ask a question, and I always kind of hate asking this question because I know how I feel, but in our world, we kind of always have in our world, we kind of always have to, do this. So being a female in a mostly male dominated career, right?
Mhm.
How do you have you had to do any hurdles that you think would have been an easier path if you weren't a female, or no, which is also legit answer.
Yeah, I mean, I think in the beginning for sure, but it's hard to know. I mean, I think part of it is just, getting that first job, and in any kind of field, it's always the toughest. But I do remember in my first job, I was not allowed to drive the forklift, even though I was the only one who had a forklift operator's certificate. That was, yeah, that kind of stuff, you know, you just go, whatever, get on. And it's just about, I don't know, believing in yourself and sticking up for yourself. We are really lucky in New Zealand that, you know, when I started out, sure, I was definitely in the minority, but now there are way more females working in the industry than, you know, when I started out. It's still hard, but I think it's hard for everyone, you know. I've been hugely supported by a lot of males in, you know, my career. So I'm pretty lucky, and yeah, I feel fortunate for that.
I had to laugh when you said the forklift. I hear that, like, that is, yeah, I wasn't allowed to drive the forklift, is like the consistent answer for
Yeah,
female
yeah,
winemakers. And you know, even though
and
you're
it's so crazy.
certified, and you know, it's just,
Yeah,
it's,
yeah, it's just one of those things,
yeah.
you know.
But
But
it
I was
is,
determined to not make it a barrier, you know, or a hurdle. It's just, if you get on and do it and just prove you're worth it, yeah,
then they
yeah,
can't say anything about it, because
no,
you're proving
nope.
you're proving how competent you are, probably more so than some other people who they allow to do things.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a tough one because I do know people who have had, you know, some pretty bad experiences. And yeah, I've just been lucky.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. And then my other twist of that is, you know how we have the, you know, the winemaker of the year, but then we have the female winemaker of the year.
I know my thoughts on this one, but you know, I mean, I I want to be compared with winemakers. You know, that's what I am. I'm a winemaker. Just because I'm a female, that it just shouldn't matter, you know. It just shouldn't matter. It should be irrelevant, you know, the female winemaker of the year. I mean, that's, yeah, it's a whatever.
It every time I hear that, I feel like, you know, it's like, and here's the participation trophy. You know, we have the
Yeah,
winemaker of the year, and then here you go for, you know, and
yeah.
you know, I know people who have been named it, and it's an honor to be named it, but at some point, I would like to just see everybody
Winemaker of the year.
winemaker of the
For
year,
sure.
and it doesn't
I'm with you.
matter. It doesn't matter. So,
Mhm.
all right. So
Glad we've cleared that one.
yes, yes. Is there anything that you would like to cover that I missed? You know, I didn't ask you what other varieties you produce. I know you do a Pinot.
Mhm.
What else do
We
you
make
produce?
obviously Sauvignon Blanc, Grüne Veltliner, which for me has been a
Ooh,
super fun, you know, journey. Just because there's not a lot of it planted here, I had no idea when to pick it, how to make it, what do you do with it, and my husband wouldn't let me go and work in Austria to find out. Not that he wouldn't, it was just too difficult. So yeah, that's been super fun. What else do we do?
I'm
We
going to
make
stop you. How did you decide on Gruner? I absolutely adore Gruner. I think it is a fun, such a fun grape.
Yeah,
So how
yeah.
did you decide on it, and how did you get those grapes?
A friend of ours who's a winemaker for another company, he and his partner were growing the fruit, and you know, they had no home for it, and so I immediately said, oh my god, pick me. That was how it happened.
Awesome.
So it's not a very interesting story, but it's been, you know, the first couple of vintages were pretty interesting and slightly hairy, and that, you know, as I said, we didn't know when to pick it. And so we kept going and tasting, go, oh, no. And then all of a sudden, holy moly, it's 26 bricks. And so we've got this really alcoholic, sweet kind of mucked that one up. So yeah, we have refined what we're doing. And we've been making it now for, might be 10 years.
Oh, wow.
Not quite 10 years. Yeah. So it's a super cool grape, it's still, I can't believe that, the bunches can be like the size of your head, these massive, hugely
Wow.
enormous bunches that we end up thinning it quite harshly, just because it's like, I'm sure that grapevine is going to fall over if we left all the fruit. So it's been really fun, and I think it's a really interesting food wine, and it's it's a wine that ages beautifully as well. So it's been interesting.
That's all. I love Gruner. I have never aged Gruner. It doesn't make it very long. I've always in my brain considered it one of the, you purchase it and
Drink
you're
now.
drinking now. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Well, if you find one that you love, buy another bottle and put it away for a few years.
All right. I will do that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then just kind of hide it so that I forget it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. So Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Noir, Gruner,
Bruno,
Chardonnay, Pinot Gris.
Chardonnay, rosé.
Okay.
And within the Sauvignon thing, we make 3 different ones. We make the classic
Okay.
style, the one that you either love or hate, but the one that flies I'm from Marlborough, here I am, I'm vibrant, I'm going to hit you with 8 different flavors, the octopus effect Sauvignon. And then we make, and that one is all picked by machine and fermented in stainless, really cold with a selected yeast. Then we make, under the OTQ range, a hand harvested whole cluster press wild ferment, Malo if it happens, Malo, if it doesn't, whatever kind of Sauvignon. So the Sauvignon that I say is for Chardonnay lovers, much more textural, lower in acid, not as overt in its flavor profile, Sauvignon. And then we make a late harvest, so the botrytized style, of which we haven't been able to make for the last 2 years because it just hasn't, the fruit has been so clean, it just didn't get botrytis, which is, frustrating but good at the same time.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that I think is, fun. Sauvignon Blanc doesn't have to be that wine that polarizes people. It can be, it's just great that it can be, a little more versatile than some people give it credit for, which I think is cool.
Yeah, that is because I do have to say, when you hear Sauvignon Blanc, people just, Marlborough Sauvignon Blanc, they're thinking of a very specific, that we won't say. Yes. Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So can you tell people where they can find you? Are you on social media? Where's the best place to contact you? Things like that?
Ooh. So we're on social media, Instagram and Facebook, Jules Taylor Wines, pretty easy to find. And, if you ever need me, Jules at julestaylor.com. It took me a year and a half to come up with my own name for that. So it's all very simple. And in terms of where you can find it in the US, just put it into your search engine. You'll find us, mainly the Sauvignon Blanc, Pinot Gris, Pinot Noir, but some places have the Chardonnay as well, and the OTQ wines as well. But they're tiny production wines, so they're not as readily available.
I will say, when I was on the website, you can plug in your zip code, and it does give you where you can find your wine.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yes. I was like, oh, look at that. So yeah. And then, pandemic, let's just throw the pandemic out to the side.
Yeah.
Can people come visit Jules Taylor Wines? What do you, is there tastings there? What do you do?
Yeah, we don't have a tasting room, but I'm always happy to see people drive up the driveway to the office. I'm happy to open a bottle of wine and sit out on the beanbag under the oak trees.
Well, that sounds perfect to me. Beanbag under tree. That's awesome.
Yeah. That's awesome. And gosh, I just don't know when we're going to be able to do this again, though. It just seems so far away.
Yes, it does. And getting worse. They just announced again mask mandates all over here. So yes, it's not. It's not. But we're gonna push through that. We're gonna look past that, see the positives.
Yes.
And have a glass. Well, I'm gonna have several glasses of Pinot Gris, but take that Sauvignon Blanc and let the sun shine and turn everything happy.
Yeah. I like that. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Jules, for taking time out of your day to spend it
No
with me.
problem.
I had a blast talking to you. The Pinot Gris is exceptional, and I can't wait to try the Chardonnay. And I don't know. I keep saying that I want to come work a vintage over there so that I can see
Yay.
how it works over there. So maybe one day I'll get there and I'll see
Maybe
it.
one day, or
Maybe
I'll see
one
you in
day.
Paso.
Yes, if you are in Paso, definitely shoot me an email and
Great.
we will have a blast.
Yay. Yeah, I do love Paso. It's a really cute little town.
It is. It is near and dear to our heart. We do love it.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So thank you very much. I hope you have a great rest of your day. You still have a whole lot of
Yes,
day left.
cheers.
Okay. So I
Yeah.
always end with what I
Cheers to
say is
that.
slancha. So
Ah,
slancha, which is cheers, Gaelic cheers. Okay. Have a great
cool.
day and thank you.
You too, Laurie. Bye.
Bye.